www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at The League Podcast and on Twitter at The League Pod. All of our podcasts will be posted on SoundCloud at The League Podcast as well.
Are you ready? Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
Let's do this thing, man.
The League Podcast.
Yeah.
Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, brother.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited. I love getting up early.
I love
and,
these early mornings, man.
doing our
I
thing,
do.
brother. Especially with all these crazy sporting events going on right now. We got the NBA Finals. We got the Stanley Cup. We got NFL offseason, which is off the hook.
Yeah, I mean, tons of going on. Obviously, biggest news, KD.
KD looks like I don't know if anyone else out there saw the video, but his Achilles straight looked like it snapped yesterday in that game. And it's so crazy to me, like, I mean, what a subtle movement as well. Like, he's just taken a step, and his whole Achilles just completely snapped, it looked like. Prayers up for KD. That's rough. And just like you were talking about a little bit ago, I wonder if that affects his free agency and what happens on who signs him next year. If maybe he might even be, like, I don't know.
Well, this might be the Lakers' opportunity to jump in and get KD and give him that max deal because I don't think anyone else will. So it's an investment that I'm willing to wait it out. Having KD in LA for the next 5 years. I mean,
Achilles too. It's a gnarly injury, but at the same time, it's not that long. Who
It's a
cares?
year,
If you have to take him out for a year, for a full recovery, so be it. You then have KD and LeBron James on the same team.
KD still has so much basketball in front of him. So I mean,
And if they happen to still keep that third, is it the third overall pick or fourth?
Third.
Third.
No,
Fourth.
third.
Third or fourth.
It's fourth.
It's third. It's fourth. Your Knicks are third.
Yeah.
Sorry. Lakers, anyhow. If they keep that pick as well, they could have LeBron James, KD, and let's say a top 5 pick in this year's draft. They might have to. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But if they could land KD to that max deal, woo! I think LeBron will be able to run this one out instead of. There's been talks about LeBron being traded. They still have such a young core on that team. I think it's important they land another superstar like that.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, like you could tell that, the GM for the Golden State Warriors loves KD. He was crying yesterday in the press conference. So I don't know if they're really going to let him go that easily. And for KD to see that, he's got to feel love,
Do you think that I was thinking the same thing? Do you think that he takes way less of a deal from the Warriors just to stay with the team because of the not loyalty, but because of the camaraderie he's built up?
Maybe he does another
family
1 year
built up?
contract, maybe $20 million, gives him a bit of a discount. But at the end of the day, like,
could they still? I wonder, lock down Clay.
I think Clay's gone.
I think so too.
Unless they decide to keep Clay
to,
now instead of KD, because Clay is healthy.
Like, what if they can get KD for a discount, sign Clay, just know that they're going to have KD for one more. Well, why would you keep KD for one more year if he's going to be injured the whole year?
Yeah.
So, anyhow.
Let's move on.
The Raptors, though, tanked on the game last night.
2 minutes
just
left,
to touch
up
base
by
on
6, and couldn't keep the lead.
Good. I mean, shout out to Steph and that whole team. I mean, they came and didn't want to go home packing. They want to go home and play another game. So all the credit to them. This is a crazy series, and it sucks KD's not involved because, I mean, obviously with them they're a whole different team. So
yeah, I mean, KD is obviously a top player in the league, if not top 3. So.
And I think it would be pretty, everyone's always overhyped the Warriors. Not overhyped, but, it's like a given Warriors take it. If the Warriors come back from this, that'd be incredible. That'd be such an incredible story. Because Kawhi's looking like the best player in the NBA, undoubtedly, and the Raptors are just playing so smooth on both sides. So
yeah, they got a good team.
No doubt. But let's get to some football, too. What happened last night, Dill? A little signing.
Yeah, so, man, you just never can believe anything in the media these days. You
I know.
got Kyle Rudolph, quote-unquote, being traded, and
every day
he's not going anywhere.
Saying, oh, where's he going to be traded to?
4-year, $36 million. I don't think he's going anywhere.
No doubt. And, it just goes to show, just because a team drafts a young player doesn't mean that instantly that person's now gone.
Let's be honest. Maybe they didn't like what they saw in OTAs. Maybe they were like, whoa, Irving isn't who we think he is. He needs a little more development.
Well, and I think the media and even us and everybody outside of the NFL hypes up rookies in such a way that they're going to make such an impact that, like, even in fantasy football drafts, these rookies get drafted so high when in reality they could still need, like you're saying, in the offense over there, the team over there might be like, this guy needs a whole year to develop. You know what I mean? Like, look at these guys like David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Irv Smith. You know, all these guys I feel like could be something, but at the same time, they might need some more development in that offense and in the NFL just to adjust. So I don't think you can be too quick to pull the trigger on some rookies, but I'm the first one that's like,
I know,
obsessed with rookies. I want
just
all
look at
the
their
young
potential.
bucks. Exactly.
That's the thing.
A+.
Anyways, let's move on to some more football news. Before we let's talk about what we're talking about today too. You know, we're going to be covering our quarterback rankings, top 10, and then we're also going to throw in an extra guy who we think is potentially going to jump into that top 10 by season's end.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I'll talk about a couple guys that they're not going to mandatory minicamp. They're not going because they want a new contract. We got Jadeveon Clowney, who was franchise tagged.
And then I think
Gold.
the bigger story. I'm just kidding, Robbie Gold.
Robbie Gold, same with him.
What a champ!
Franchise
Holding out.
Oh my gosh, dude! I know, right?
He had a great year last year, though. He wants to get locked down.
And then Yannick Ngakoue, also holding out.
Interesting. They're having a defense, man. You already got Telvin Smith, right, taking the year off. I don't know. I mean, that defense has been a solid top 5 defense every year, but you keep losing guys like this. This is hopefully, they work something out. But
definitely, man. And once again, it's always disappointing when they don't show up. But I think most of these guys will get a deal done. Hopefully before season starts, so they can get them back. And I'm sure they will. They're key players on these teams that. Without them, they're missing a huge part of their team.
Yeah, no doubt.
But, a couple other storylines, DeSean Jackson.
Who has been everywhere in the news this offseason.
Is it one of those smoke screens? Is it one of those, I'm going to talk about this player all offseason to make you draft him in the 4th round, and then he gives you a bust stats?
I think because of his injuries, possibly, but if this man can play a full, even let's say 14 out of 16 games, I think he is well worth that, I would say I don't know if I'd take him in the 4th, maybe late 4th.
I know. I was just kind of being.
But I'm loving Carson. I think MVP candidate Carson Wentz is going to have a huge year, and DeSean Jackson's going to be the Tyreek Hill-ish to his huge arm. I mean, Carson Wentz has a cannon of an arm. He needs that speed. I think DeSean plays a huge role in that, and I'm buying into the hype. I'm not going to lie. I'm buying into it. Whereas in Tampa Bay, I was not into DeSean Jackson like I am back in Philly. I love the whole story. I love everything about it.
He just fits their scheme.
He fits. I love that. But he's been all over the news this offseason, which it's gonna be interesting to see this year. 32 years old, so
yeah, he's getting in his older years, but he's still playing like he's 25 with his speed. So
yep.
I mean, I definitely, depending on if he falls to me in the right spot, then I might grab him. But we'll see how that all plays out once preseason comes around. Anyways, another player on the Eagles, Dallas Goedert, they're just raving about him as well, saying how much he's developed since last year and that, his offseason's been phenomenal. I think that this guy can still be very fantasy relevant with Zach Ertz. They run a lot of 2 tight end sets. Last year, I would say there was 3 or 4 games that he scored over 15, 20 points. And so, obviously, the more they use him, the more targets he's going to get. We know that Carson Wentz loves his tight ends, and we know that offense is built around tight ends.
Yeah.
So,
and his red zone appeal. I feel like those 2 tight end sets
multiple touchdowns last year too.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like Zach Ertz and that offense gets him down the field, and Goedert has a lot of upside in that red zone, scoring. What did he score? 4 touchdowns last year.
4 touchdowns, yeah.
So nothing, but still, I think he's gonna have a huge jump this year. I think he could potentially get close to doubling that statistic this year.
Definitely. I agree, definitely. And but anyways, I mean,
Yeah.
moving on. I think that's about it for the football news, right?
Yeah, I want to dive right into our QB rankings. And obviously, we're going to hit you guys from QB to running backs to wide receivers to tight ends, defenses, kickers. We'll give you guys the whole nine. Today, we're just going to do the quarterbacks. We're going to split it up. We'll probably do the running backs and wide receivers next episodes, tight ends next one, etc. So, and then like Dill said, throwing in some guys that are maybe not ranked in our top 10, but we definitely think have the potential to get there by the end of the fantasy season. So, Dill, why don't you kick it off? Let's get it going.
All right, I will.
Who is your number one? Or should we start from 10 and work our way up to 1?
I like that.
Let's do that so we can build up the anticipation.
Okay.
So, with that being said, Dill, who is your number 10th quarterback going into this year's fantasy football season?
So, as of right now, this is actually my second pair of quarterback rankings. I made a couple edits.
Okay.
I moved him up. He actually was outside the top 10, and I moved him up, in the last week or so. And that's who we were just talking about, Mr. Carson Wentz. Obviously, last year wasn't... I reached for him in a lot of drafts. I drafted him early in a lot of drafts, and...
He busted on you.
Yeah, he busted on me. I mean...
Right on your face.
Wow. All right.
Goodness.
He definitely dropped the ball, I should say. He actually had a pretty decent year, but just injuries kind of lingered, and he wasn't exactly his MVP caliber person or player the year previous. So
yeah,
him obviously ending last year hurt again is concerning, but this whole preseason, or I should say off season, I'm sorry, he's really getting back into things, and he looks good. He's running, he's throwing, he's playing in the offense. Like we said, he just shows great chemistry with all the players. And, once again, Carson Wentz is a great leader. And not to mention, he just signed a huge contract, so he's going to be there for the next 6 years. That gives you a lot more confidence as well when it comes to the player having confidence, knowing that the franchise is behind them and they don't have as much pressure to play for. That new contract, or even just being able to stay with the team. So I really am excited about Carson Wentz. And like I said, they have one of the best offensive lines in the league. They have an arsenal of weapons. Zach Ertz, top 3 tight end in the league. Alshon Jeffrey, if healthy, could be a top 10 receiver. Like we were talking about, Dallas Goedert is growing and developing every day, so he could end up being one of those top guys as well. Deshaun Jackson,
not to mention too,
Nelson Aguilar, who was one of the top guys last year as well. So, they do have a lot of depth at those skill positions. And then, running back, they got Jordan Howard now. They drafted Miles Sanders, who I'm really high on. So I think they're going to have a really good offense. And, I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
And by the preseason, Carson Wentz might be in my top 5. He truly might be in my top 5 by season start because he looks that good.
He's already creeping right outside of mine. I'm raving about him this year, no doubt. I like that. I like it. I'm glad he made your top 10. I would have been very disappointed if he didn't, Dill.
Yeah. No, I'm excited about him, and I do hope I get him in a draft or two because I know I'll do 10 or 12. But anyways, Jay, what about you? Who is your number 10 player, or number 10 quarterback, I should say?
So you have, a guy that's in his 4th season, going into his 4th season, I should say. I have a guy that's going into his 40th season. Just kidding, not quite. But he is 40 years old, and there's only so many of those in the league. So that man is Mr. Drew Brees. I got him as my number 10 quarterback. Obviously, this man, I think he should be in the top 10 for everyone every year. He is always going to be a number one fantasy quarterback on your team. And coming off a year where the man threw 32 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. And it was only like 6 or 8 yards short of another 4,000-yard year. Not to mention, he doesn't miss games. If you look at his statistics, it's like the last, like I said, 40 years is all 16 games. He played last year 15 out of 15. I don't need to go much farther with this guy. I love Drew Brees, not to mention all of his weapons, having an Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Cam Meredith, Ted Ginn for the speed, Traquan Smith, who we were both high on at the end of last year, who I think is going to develop. They've obviously updated their offensive line, drafted Eric McCoy at center. I really, really like this offense a lot. Not to mention how loyal he is to this team. A couple months ago, the Saints restructured his contract to clear almost $11 million in cap space. just so they could have some room to spend some more money. That just shows how loyal he is. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's still going to receive $23 million. He's doing 2019, but it basically pushed his cap figure to be higher next year, which just means he'll make more money next year. But this year they could spend some more money on players, which I thought is pretty cool. So anyhow, he rounds out my top 10 of quarterbacks right now. It's still early. It's still before preseason, so we got a ways to go. But Drew Brees, Mr. Drew Brees, you can never go wrong. And especially, like, I love that pairing. If you happen to draft Michael Thomas in the first round, you go out and get a Drew Brees later, all day. Give me some of that.
All day. Give me some of that.
So that's my number 10. Let's. I'm gonna keep it going, Dill. I'm gonna go to my number 9 guy and then shoot it back to you, okay? Because I got a young buck that frankly, I was pretty obsessed with in college. The young man from Louisville, that's Lamar Jackson. Took over the starting job by the end of the year. He only played 7 games, obviously, and I know you think his stats suck, but
as a rusher, no. As a passer, yes.
Yeah, and I think hopefully he's developed quite a bit coming into this season when it comes to passing. I love the addition of Marquise Brown. Honestly, I think Marquise Brown could have some relevancy going into this fantasy year, honestly, and he's not really being talked about too much. But on top of that, they play so much to the run that I think if he doesn't do it in the passing game, I mean, like you just mentioned, his rushing is going to make up for it, and that's why I have Lamar Jackson ranked at number 9 this year, because simply if he can get his passing together and continue, obviously, his rushing abilities, I think that's one of my favorite combinations in fantasy football, is that double doozy right there, being able to pass and rush. So I went with him. He actually edged out Drew and made my top 9 on my quarterback rankings. But he could be potentially the guy that I move out of it for the guy that I think could slip into it that we talk about later on, if that makes sense.
Lamar Jackson's number 18.
Yeah, I mean, it's you two of which ways you can go.
I agree. I'm just thinking, I don't see him get to that next level when it comes to passing. Rushing, I think he's still going to produce, and with that being said, he's going to be a top 12 quarterback because of the rushing, right? But if he does get that passing together, like you said, I mean, he could potentially be a top 5 quarterback. Just like RG3 years back in 2012 or whenever, when he had that amazing magical year with his legs and with his arm.
Who happens to be mentoring him right behind him in his backup. So I love that comparison, man.
Completely could happen.
So
I love it. I love it, but I'm not taking the risk on him.
And it's going to be a high risk, high reward in this at the end of the day. And I think if you draft Lamar Jackson, you're drafting a backup quarterback as well, just in case. But his ceiling is so absolutely so high. So
let's be honest. He's on my team in the Dynasty League. So I have him in our Dynasty Leagues, and I love it because I've got Russell Wilson as my number 1 guy. Doubt. Lamar Jackson is my number 2.
Exactly. So I think if he's in the right place this year in fantasy drafts, go ahead and take a flyer on Lamar, and he might just pay dividends, no doubt. So, Dill, going back to your side, who do you have as your number 9 quarterback?
I've actually got another Heisman winner.
Look at that.
Also, number 1 pick of the 2018 draft, Mr. Baker Mayfield.
Stud.
We all know what he did last year. Obviously, I would like to see the interceptions come down a little bit and the touchdowns go up a little bit, but once again, he only started 13 games. He played in 14, so he had a few more games. He could have had a few more games under his belt, so he probably would have hit that 30 touchdown mark, 4,000 yards. But I do see him hitting both of those this year with Odell Beckham on the team. Obviously, that just brings a whole nother element to the Browns' offense. To Baker Mayfield in particular, obviously Jarvis Landry's there, but he is that slot, little dunk and dive type of guy as Odell stretches the field. Last year they had Antonio Callaway, who
looks to want. He wants another 1,000. Or he wants 1,000.
Yeah, he's claiming he's gonna ball out. So we'll see. But if he does, that'll be him. That'll be David Njoku. That'll be Jarvis. That'll be Odell. Their offense is once again a ton of firepower. They have a really good offensive line. They did trade away one of their best offensive line to the Giants.
Zeitler.
Yeah. So that was a little disappointing to see on the Browns' end, especially having Nick Chubb, thinking about keeping him. It does bring his value down a little bit, but they did draft Austin Corbett last year or 2 years ago in the second round, obviously with the plans to eventually start him. So they obviously have enough confidence in him, and we could say, okay, that was a good move. But anyways, I think we all know what Baker Mayfield's going to do this year and what he has. So let's move on to our next one, Jay. Who do you have at number 8?
That was your 9, right?
Yeah, that was my
So
9.
my 8 is Baker Mayfield. I have him one above you. I think very similar opinions on him, obviously. With the addition to Odell, he is another guy that could potentially break that top 5 by the end of the year, I think, undoubtedly. And Njoku's development as well. I mean, that offense is just ridiculous. You got a Nick Chubb and a Kareem Hunt coming back eventually that are both pass catchers as well. They can get it done in any facet on the offense. So Baker Mayfield's definitely someone that I'm very high on. I think everybody is high on going into this year. So why don't we go to back to your number 8, since my number 8 was Bake.
Cool, man. Yeah, I mean, number 8 for me is my boy Jared Goff, Los Angeles Rams.
It's your boy.
He every year since being in the league has improved. Obviously, from year 1 to year 2, tremendously. From year 2 to year 3, he set career highs and everything, as in games played, games started, completions, attempts, percentage, yards, average, touchdowns, rating, even rushing. So, I mean, Jared Goff just set career highs in everything, and I think the sky's the limit, especially this year playing on a contract year, having, Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods both go over 1,000 yards last year, and then Cooper Kupp coming back. I mean, Cooper Kupp was on pace to be at like 1,300 yards last year. So I just think that we potentially could have 3,000-yard receivers this year. It sounds crazy, but I do believe it is possible with Sean McVay's offense,
Do you think, though, without a solid run game, say the run game isn't as good, because it'd be hard to beat the production that happened last year. Do you still think that those receivers, I think it would be harder
100%.
for all three of them are able to hit 1,000
I think
if that run game.
The reason
I
even say this is because there is question marks on the running game. So if there is question marks on the running game, Jared Goff is going to be relied on. And the biggest thing with Jared Goff is sometimes, what I don't like about him, I should say, is in those big moments, sometimes he doesn't prevail. But there are times that he comes out and he looks like he is the best quarterback in the league. So I'm hoping this year he comes out, like I said, motivated, hoping for a new contract. Carson Wentz just got paid, so he's thinking, I'm the number 1 pick. I deserve that money. So I'm hoping he comes out and he just fires away like last year. And with maybe Todd Gurley not as healthy, them not using him as much, they did get Darrell Henderson, who's a playmaker.
They got to rely on the pass game.
They got Malcolm Brown. Yeah, they're going to rely maybe more on the pass game to take a little bit of pressure off the run game, so they don't have to run it so much. And that's where Jared Goff's going to throw it, and that's where those 3 receivers are all going to be able to get that 1,000 yards because they're going to throw it a little bit more. He obviously almost threw 100 more passes from 2007 to 2018. I could even see that even going up again to maybe even 600 attempts to 650 attempts. So,
wow.
That's why I think, once again, Jared Goff could be that guy that's here, or he could be that guy like you said about Lamar Miller. He could be falling back out of my top 12 because that offense is struggling because they don't have a healthy Todd Gurley who runs that offense. But once again, I think that I think Todd Gurley is going to be okay, and I think that we have solid other running backs on our team that will be able to help carry the load this year. So, Jared Goff, I'm really excited to see what he has. Obviously, I love the Rams, so this is a player that I would love to draft. Yeah, definitely. But if I do draft Jared Goff, I'm probably going to draft a second quarterback just to have that depth, if anything. Anyways, Jay, why don't we move on to your number 7 quarterback?
Yeah. Awesome. Another mobile quarterback, man. I love my mobile quarterbacks.
Just like
in
Madden.
That's right. It's just who I always go with. This guy is coming off season surgery, so a little concerning, but I think it was for the better. That's Superman Cam Newton. I have him as my number 7 quarterback going into this season, and that's strictly due to Superman. I mean, I literally think that this season coming into now, he's saying he's pain free. He's starting to throw again. He's gonna start drills with the team soon, which is gonna be awesome. And it just looks like the chemistry with that team over the last year has built so much between DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, their young receiving core. Greg Olson's just holding it down. He's coming back as well. Cam is just, I really think, going to make a huge playoff run this year. I think this is his year to really be a bounce-back player off of a really rough year where he was injured all the way throughout the year, where I love stepping up. He continued to go out there and put his life on the line every single game, which I had him, and it was a huge struggle. Because there were those games where you could tell he's hurting and he's throwing picks and not able to move as quickly. But this year, I really, It always happens where I like tend to throw him away and be like, never again. I'm never gonna have that. But I would really be interested in drafting Cam Newton again because I think this is the year. Like I said, he has a huge bounce back year. So.
Yeah, I mean, I love Cam Newton. I had Cam Newton when he was the number one quarterback in fantasy, won MVP in the league. They went to the Super Bowl. I mean, that was amazing. That was an amazing year for me in fantasy. You actually beat me in the championship that year, so it was a little disappointing. But, at the same time, I still hold on to that piece of Cam Newton and remember it. So there always is in the back of my head, like, it's going to happen again.
Exactly.
It's going to happen again.
He has that potential. We know it. And not to mention Christian McCaffrey. I mean, having a run game like that and a guy back there who you can dump off a 1-yard pass to that can take it 99 yards to the crib, I just feel like that offense is built for Cam, and I'm really excited to see that offense play this year.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited. I have Cam at 12 just because of the shoulder, but once again, I do think that he's a guy that can easily be in the top 10 for me by preseason, even season start.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's shooting back to you now, Dill. Who do you got at 7?
Well, 7, I actually have Drew Brees. We already touched base on Drew Brees, so I'm going to fire it back to you.
Okay.
And why don't you let us know who your number 6 quarterback is?
Well, once again, Carson Wentz, who you've actually really done a great job touching base on. Both super high on. I really do think that he is an MVP. I think he is going to make an MVP push this year, going off 2 years ago where he lights out was like MVP. I felt like he was the undoubted MVP going into that year that they won the Super Bowl and he wasn't even in it, obviously. Yeah. But, just to piggyback on what you were saying about how good that offense is, one of my favorite offensive lines in the league, not to mention. So, all that being said, I think he's pushing into the top 5 for me as well this year because I'm excited about what they can do. He's coming off that record-breaking contract. I mean, super excited. But I do like your points about going back a little bit to Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff this year, I'm interested to see how he's going to play. He's going to want that contract. He's really looking at Carson like, wow, this man just got locked down for a long time and a lot of money.
If he is going to have a year, if there's any year to draft Jared Goff, it's this year. Whether he completely tanks on you or he gives you an MVP caliber year.
40-plus touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's possible. He had, close to it last year. So, if not, he might even had over that, But, I don't know. Yeah, I'm really excited about Jared Goff, man. But Carson Wentz as well.
Carson Wentz as well. So, 6 for me was Carson. So, Dill, is that shooting back to you at 6?
Yeah. So, 6. I got big bad Russ Wilson. Obviously I'm a Rams fan, so Seahawks are our rivals, but I mean, how could you not like Russell Wilson, man? He just seems like such a stand-up guy and he loves football. He loves football and
I don't know, he's a big gangster now that he got with Sierra.
Oh yeah,
he's a bit hood. But no doubt, he's and another man that just got locked down to a major contract.
Yeah, 4-year, $140 million. I mean, he's set for life.
I think he's gonna definitely go out and prove why he signed that contract. So,
yeah, exactly.
Or why he was worth that contract.
And the biggest thing about Russell Wilson is last year, everyone talked about how the Seahawks were a run-heavy team, run-first team. And it's funny because Russell Wilson actually set his career high in touchdown passes last year and tied his career low in interceptions and, his highest passer rating ever. So I think he had an amazing year last year. And once again, I think he's going to have another amazing year because they are going to run the ball, which is going to open up the passing game. And obviously drafting your boy DK Metcalf opens up that downfield threat that they've been missing. I mean, not missing because Tyler Lockett was that guy. So now they got 2 downfield threats with the opportunity of Tyler Lockett to play in that slot. You know? So I really am excited about Russell Wilson when it comes to fantasy. I've drafted him in a lot of mock drafts because he falls in the right area, the 6th between 8th round. He's in there where you don't have to reach too early on a quarterback and you'll still get a top 5 guy. And I feel like Russ is really consistent, especially the last 4 to 5 years being in the top 5. So
for sure.
Russell Wilson's my guy for number 6. Obviously, when he plays the Rams, I bench him because it's not going to happen. But other than that, Russ Wilson usually steps up to the plate pretty good, and it's pretty consistent.
Nice. I have Russ one above you at 5, so I don't think we need to preach too much more about Russell. Yeah, so I'm going to take over. Sorry,
why don't you go ahead?
What's your 5?
So my 5,
so I don't jump ahead.
That's right. My 5 is Matt Ryan.
Nice.
So I got Matty Ice. once again,
Number 5.
Yeah, Matt Ryan, number 5. I love the Falcons' offense.
Their
They
offense
built
is amazing.
their offensive line. 2 first-round picks this year to solidify.
No
They already
doubt.
had a great offensive line. Now Calvin Ridley's going on to his 2nd year in the league, and he flashed last year. I think he takes that next jump to the next level.
Love it.
And him and Julio take over, not to mention Mohamed Sanu, who probably, honestly, has the best hands in the league. The guy doesn't drop a thing. So, I mean, 3 receivers that are just so solid, and then Austin Hooper, obviously, every year is taking that next step. I'm a little concerned because he's already sitting out with ankle injury, so I am worried about that.
But not to mention run games there.
Devontae Freeman back from injury. I'm so excited about that.
Yep.
Obviously, we've been raving about him all offseason. We both love him.
There's a lot of upside on that offense.
So much upside.
Exciting.
I 2 years ago, obviously, he had an MVP caliber year. 2016. His stats from last year pretty much mirror that year when it comes to touchdowns, interceptions, yardage, but completion percentage. But in between 2017 was kind of a down year for him. But last year he had a great year, and nobody talked about him. Nobody's talking about it coming into this year. And I just think that the offense is better than it was last year. So I just see him once again producing almost 5,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. Top 5 stats.
Exactly.
So, once again, I don't think I need to say much more except Matt Ryan is surrounded by an amazing arsenal of weapons like we talked about the other guys, but I do think the Falcons have a top 5 offense in the entire league. So, I want a piece of it.
I love it. I have him at 11. He's right outside my top 10. Another guy that, because of that offense, could break up into that top 10, if not top 5. I love that bold prediction there with Matt Ryan at 5.
I just love, once again, he's one of those guys that's proven himself time in and time out, but he's also had those down years with those offense coordinator changes.
Mm-hmm.
Him keeping his offense coordinator this year
he should just be
is
on
a
the
positive, a huge positive. It hasn't happened in a while. So,
and when you got a team, just like you mentioned, that just upgrades, I mean, there's no way up. There's no other way but
and
up.
Everyone knows when you build your offensive line, that is what makes you successful. So, congratulations. What's your name? Matt Ryan. You better be taking those big boys out.
Well, speaking of building up offensive lines, I'm going to get to my number 4 pick here. Sorry about that. Number 4 pick who was on the verge of being in my top 3. I couldn't get him in there, and that's Andrew Luck. One of my I said that too about the Eagles, but this is also one of my favorite offensive lines in the draft. Quentin Nelson, give me a break. Ryan Kelly's a stud. Went out, they got Anthony Costanzo, who I get in Madden all the time because he's a solid offensive lineman. So, and then I just, like I said, built off a year where everyone doubted them, and then look what they did in the run game last year. Look what they did in the pass game. That offensive line has just gotten better, so I think they're going to continue to improve that whole offense. With Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck put up 4,500 yards last year, 1 touchdown away from 40 touchdowns. And he has only added weapons to that offense, such as Paris Campbell, Devin Funchess, gets a Deion Kane back from injury, who's another young buck, who's your boy, I know. So I really, really think that Andrew Luck has the potential to go into that top 3. Let's not forget that, 2 years ago, 2016, or 3 years ago, we should say, he put up over 30 touchdowns. He had 4,200 yards. But before that, 2014, I drafted him in the first round, and it won me a fantasy football championship. Wow. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy, but he put up 40 touchdowns, was just shy of 5,000 yards. I think he returns to that form and is just on your Matt Ryan levels of stats. I think Andrew Luck gets, and he potentially, like I said, becomes a top 3 quarterback before the end of the year.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at. He's 4 for me. Would love to get him in my top 3, but I love my top 3 guys even more. But let's shoot it back to you for your number 4, Dill.
Yeah, so I think this might be surprising to everyone, or maybe not really, but I actually have Mr. Pat Mahomes, number 4. He's being drafted in, the second, third round in a lot of these drafts. So
I'm sorry, our draft, he was drafted in the first round.
Yeah, he was.
I think 9th or 10th or 11th overall. Yeah. End of the first round.
8th or 9th.
So, you're seeing people reach on this man.
And
heavily.
The reason why, and it might change. He might jump right back to number 1 or 2 for me.
And are you thinking because of Tyreek?
Yeah, strictly because of Tyreek, because he is such a crucial part of that offense. And once again, everyone keeps saying they drafted Mecole Hardman to replace him. It's not going to happen. He is not going to produce at the level that Tyreek, that guy's a ball player, man. That guy is ridiculous. When he gets the ball in his hand, like I don't know.
No, you know.
There's no one like him. There's no one in the league like him.
You get that ball in his hands, and he literally, like, you can say that
Takes
about.
off.
You can say this about quite a few players. Like, when, he gets the ball in his hand, you always think he's going to score. But, like, Tyreek Hill literally is the one player that if he has the ball in his hand, he could literally out-juke that whole defense and get to the crib. Like, we saw it, Dallas Cowboys, where it was like a Hail Mary type, and he catches in the middle of the field, jukes a couple guys out, runs to the left, catches a block. He ends up getting there on, like, no time left. I think it was right before half, but he's one of those few guys that like you're saying, he's just a difference maker, and it's really going to be hard to replace that.
And I think that he's still going to produce. He's still going to produce. He still has great weapons. Travis Kelce is being drafted number 1 tight end in all leagues in the second round. So sometimes in the end of the first round. So, he does still have all these weapons, but I just don't see him doing as well without Tyreek Hill. But I still see him being a top, like I said, top 4, top 3 guy. But anyways,
yeah. I like that. I like it a lot. I do think, just to touch base a little bit more, obviously I haven't said his name yet, so he knows it's a little higher for me. But I think Tyreek's playing a whole 16. I think that this isn't going to get too far, which is crazy because they were so quick to drop the hammer on Kareem Hunt. But then again, it's a different situation. It's a different player. There was video evidence of Kareem Hunt. There's just recording evidence, I guess, of Tyreek Hill. So
that's why, there is a little bit of evidence, and that's why I don't think it's just going to be shut down. And so I don't know. So it's scary.
I just think it's going to play on into the season where he's going to end up playing at least, I think, maybe week 1. And he's, like last night, he's been drafted in the 13th round. And it's like, gosh, you could have a guy that's a complete, like we're saying, absolute difference maker on the Chiefs, on any team if he was on. But I think if he does play that whole season, even without him, Pat Mahomes is a top 3 quarterback. That guy's doing no look passes. I mean, come on now. Which in the new Madden, you see that the new graphics, he's doing the no look passes. They're doing all time.
Amazing.
Oh, it's gonna look like it's gonna be
Drew
fun.
Brees, his signature.
Oh my gosh, we both licked our fingers. If you guys are wondering, but anyhow, so that was my 4. That was your 4.
Yep.
Wow, out of the top 3, Pat Mahomes. That's, like you said, pretty surprising for a lot of people.
Yeah.
This might be even more surprising for some people. Is I have Aaron Rodgers as not my number 1 quarterback. I wanted to put him there. I really did. He's my number 3. I have him at number 3, and I have 2 young bucks who I'm in love with, not more than Aaron Rodgers, but simply due to their offenses, I look at them a little higher than I do Aaron Rodgers, not to discount, double-check Aaron ever at all. But still my top 3. Don't need to preach on Aaron. I don't think anybody needs to preach on Aaron very long. But Davante Adams is his boy, and I really see that connection continuing to grow. He's already said that he wants to throw the ball more to him when Davante Adams had a career year. I mean, I love it. I love to hear that. They've boosted up their offensive line. They've added some weapons here and there on that offense, such as Jay Sternberger to learn behind Jimmy Graham, which I love. I think Jimmy Graham has a solid year, just being consistent, I should say, learning that offense, being in it a little longer. I think that run game is going to help Aaron a lot. I think they're really going to try and get that run going. And let's not forget, Matt LaFleur coached Julio Jones on Julio Jones's career year. I think Davante Adams could really look at mirroring what Julio Jones brought to that offense for the Atlanta Falcons when Matt LaFleur was there. So I'm really excited. They've been talking super highly about his offense and the explosive plays that could take place and will take place. Aaron Rodgers, in my eyes, is a top 3 quarterback in fantasy and number 1 quarterback in the league, period.
Yeah, no, I love Aaron Rodgers, and he's actually number 2 on my list. So, I agree with everything you say, and I think Davante Adams is, he's my number 2 receiver, so I think he's a top player in the league. And I mean, what Aaron Rodgers does with the ball is, we're talking about Pat Mahomes' no-look passes. Just the way that Aaron Rodgers can put the ball anywhere on the field he wants, right in the breadbasket
from any position, like as in like leaning back, leaning forward, from the run left, from the run right. He's one of a kind, just like we were talking about Tyreek Hill. I mean, there's those players that are just generational talents that are Aaron Rodgers is, and with the arm talent, being able to throw the ball 180 yards is something else. Just like Pat Mahomes, those guys that have those rocket arms that can throw the whole field are just so amazing to watch.
Yeah, they are.
And
Well, Aaron Rodgers is
not to mention when you're a huge Packers fan, it just makes it that much sweeter. So, Aaron Rodgers, my number 3. You have him at number 2.
Yeah, I have him at number 2.
So who's your number 3 then? Just to round out our top 3, who do you have at number 3, Dale?
Mr. Deshaun Watson.
Nice.
So, obviously, Deshaun Watson, huge upside with his legs as well. He's a runner, but he's also got a great arm. He threw 26 touchdowns last year, 4,000 yards. So, nothing crazy. DeAndre Hopkins is a huge reason why also Deshaun Watson's in my top 3, because DeAndre Hopkins is the best receiver in the entire NFL. I mean, the guy's, once again, I said that Mohamed Sanu has the best hands in the league. I'm sorry, I take that back. It's definitely DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, this guy's hands are the size of Goliath, So, obviously, that ball ain't going nowhere. And Deshaun Watson in college was, to say the least, electrifying, and he's already brought that, the first year, 2017, his rookie year before he got hurt, he was electrifying. He set the league on fire, and then he got hurt, and he came back last year and started off a little slow, but, he picked it up, and, he had huge games. He had 5 touchdown games, he had, rushing games where he scored a couple touchdowns, so there were a few games where he was over 30 points in fantasy, and that's what we're looking for, but there were a lot of weeks where he was, 5 points, 9 points, 11 points. So that you don't want to see that in a quarterback that you're drafting in the 3rd round. So with just like all these other quarterbacks, there's negatives about these players, and his offensive line is that negative. That's really what has set him apart from all these other quarterbacks, is the fact that he doesn't have the time that these other guys do. He's getting demolished back there. If you put Deshaun Watson behind a Atlanta Falcons line, Deshaun Watson's going to probably be the MVP of the league, right? But
yeah, no doubt. And I was going to wait to touch base on him a little bit more, but I have Deshaun Watson as my number 1 quarterback on the board this year. And
wow.
I know I might have just jumped the gun there, but I just want to preach and talk to you a bit about his offensive line, because you're doubting it. But don't forget that they spent a 1st-round pick on Titus Howard and a 2nd-round pick on Max Sharping, a guard. They went out and got a tackle and a guard in this year's draft.
Which is great.
Which is great,
and huge, and that's why he's in my top 3, because they did upgrade the line, but it's still not complete.
Last year, he was the number 1 sacked quarterback in the league, the most times. Yeah. He has the feet, he has the agility, he can do all that, but it's nothing without a solid offensive line that can give you some time, just like you're saying. And I do see improvement on that this year. Yeah. And Deshaun Watson just needs a little bit of improvement there. Give him another 1 to 2 seconds in that pocket, and watch what he'll be able to do with DeAndre Hopkins.
No, I agree.
I'm super, since Deshaun Watson came into the league, just like he said that he was going to be the MJ of that draft. I could not have agreed more. And I was, obviously going into his draft, I was raving and couldn't believe that guys were going before him, such as Bears trading up for Mitch Trubisky and etc. I was just mind blown because they were passing up on Deshaun
Watson behind the Bears line. They're in the Super Bowl last year.
Give me a break. It's over. Yeah. So I really think with a little improvement and watch these guys continue to develop throughout the year, I really think Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, not to mention Keke Couturier, who we both are high on, and Deshaun's raving about going into this offseason. Will Fuller, we know the potential's there. Always hurt though, so it's hard to say. When he does play 3 games, he scores 23 touchdowns.
I know, right?
It's ridiculous. And not to mention they got a decent running back there in Lamar Miller, who obviously they're confident about. And without going out and getting somebody, they're still relying on Deontay Foreman, who is coming off, was it Achilles injury or ACL or something? He's coming off a decent injury where they must have a lot of faith in Lamar Miller, which I do like. And that means the run game should be there. And as long as they can build up some sort of a run, I'm telling you, Deshaun Watson, I think, could be an MVP this year and take them to the promised land.
I definitely can see that happening if he gets that extra time. And, obviously they spent a lot of draft capital on that offensive line, signed a couple of veteran players. So I do see an improvement, and I do see Deshaun Watson having an amazing year. I do.
So I totally blew up my first overall pick, so dun-dun-dun-dun, but I just wanted to preach on Deshaun a bit because I love him. My number one. So that was who was that
Number
on yours?
three.
Number 3.
And number 2 is Aaron Rodgers, and we already talked
We
about
already
him.
talked
so
A-Rod. I have number 2, Pat Mahomes.
Okay.
We've preached about. I have number 1, obviously Deshaun Watson, who I just raved about clearly, and Dill. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Who do you got as your number 1 quarterback going into the season?
I have Mr. Andrew Luck from Stanford University.
Oh, beast. Obviously, like we mentioned too.
I mean,
one of the best
you made
offensive
all
lines.
the points earlier, and I mean, I'm really high on Paris Campbell this year. I'm really high on Deion Kane from last year. I think that he may not be the guy because now they have Devin Funchess, and that's kind of the Deion Kane role, unless Deion Kane beats out Devin Funchess. But either or, I mean, that's a good big red zone threat that Andrew Luck has kind of been missing since Dante Moncrief.
Sure.
And with Marlon Mack coming into the year healthy, that's going to upgrade that offensive run game a lot more, which is going to open up the pass a lot more for Andrew Luck. So he's going to start off strong, and he's going to finish strong. And that's why I think that, like you said earlier, you think back in 2014 when he had that MVP year and won you that championship, I see him being on that level again this year. And, I think that I think the Colts honestly probably have the best offensive line in the league, and that's why it went this way. And if T.Y. Hilton can stay healthy for the year, Jack Doyle can stay healthy for the year,
Eric Ebron,
I mean, this offense could, they can look like the greatest show on turf back in 1999. So
yeah, I mean, like you look at like the Falcons who have such a flashy offense that's like wow, like that's one of the best offenses in the league, or the Saints, these guys that have just high-powered. The Colts are being slept on when it comes to their studs, and don't get me wrong, they're not being completely slept on, but they do, I think, as well, have one of the best offenses in the league, undoubtedly.
Yeah, so I mean, that's my number 1 player, Andrew Luck, my number 1 quarterback, I should say, Andrew Luck, and I'm really hoping to snag him in one of my drafts at least because I think he's going to ball.
So, I loved it. I love both of our top 10s, but what I'm going to love even more is hearing who you have, Dill, as your player that's ranked outside of your top 10, anywhere outside of your top 10, could be 11 for all that matter. Hopefully we get pull him from a little deeper down, but who is going to make your top 10 by the end of the, or potentially make your top 10 by the end of the season.
All right, so obviously there's a few players, man. I mean, I'm looking through my guys. I'm trying to figure out exactly who I want to put into my top 10. And, I'm going to go a little outside my top 15 and go with a guy named Ben Roethlisberger.
Okay.
Someone that, obviously he's coming into his 17th season, so he's not anybody new. He's been in the top 10 multiple times in the league. Last year he was in the top 10. So, right now I have him at 17. He obviously lost the best receiver in the league,
Sure,
Antonio Brown. So that's a huge hit on him. But Juju is also a very, very good receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's being shown by his average draft position in that second round. So as long as Juju makes that transition, and I shouldn't even say make that transition, but just continue doing what he was doing last year with the help of a James Washington or the rookie that they drafted, God, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, Deontay
Thompson? No.
Deontay, dang, I'll have to look that up, but that rookie receiver, Deontay Johnson maybe, that they drafted in the third round with the pick from the Raiders, it might pan out. He's actually getting in 3 wide receiver sets as a starter. So he might play out and he might be pretty good. I mean, they're really good at finding these receivers and really developing them. So I think James Washington takes a step up this year in that number 2 role. Not to mention, I mentioned Dante Moncrief earlier as a red zone threat for Andrew Luck. I think it's the same thing with Ben. I think that he's going to find him in the end zone plenty of times downfield. Last year, he threw for 34 touchdowns, over 5,000 yards. So I could still see him, being at over 4,000 yards with 30 touchdowns. Maybe not up to 50,000 or 5,000 yards without an Antonio Brown getting all those yards after the catch.
Yeah,
but once again, I think that they are good enough and their staff is good enough to develop all their guys and build their offense to be maybe not as good, but almost as good as their offense was last year. So Big Ben is my guy that, heck, he's going almost in the last round right now, second to last round. So it's a steal, even if he, isn't a top 5 guy like he used to be, I still think he's going to throw touchdowns. And with Ben Roethlisberger, we got to expect those games where he throws 5 touchdowns, and we got to expect those games where he throws 5 interceptions.
Yep.
That's what's so risky about Big Ben. But once again, I think that he's more motivated now too because all this media, and he's like, I just want to shut everyone up, and I want to play ball and show them that I don't need Antonio Brown, I don't need Le'Veon Bell, because that's what everyone's going to point to is, can he do this without them? Obviously, he did it without Le'Veon Bell. Now it's time to do it without AB.
Yeah.
And let's see if you are that Hall of Fame player that everyone thinks you will be.
And behind that offensive line, I feel like he could definitely do that.
Exactly. And James Conner. James Conner is an amazing running back. He proved that he can do what maybe not exactly what Lev was doing, but pretty much mirrored his stats. So,
yeah.
I mean,
not his playmaking ability,
definitely
but
not
his stats, no doubt. I like it. I like the veteran call there. Potentially, definitely moving in. He's got the offense to do it, so I love that pick.
All right, Jay. What about you, man?
I'm going a much riskier route with this one. Of course, once again, another young buck, probably the youngest buck. Not the youngest, but this was the first overall pick in this year's 2019 draft, and that's Kyler Murray. I feel like he's being, kind of discounted for his abilities. I feel like he could definitely become a top 10 quarterback. I mean, look at what Baker Mayfield did last year, not even playing a full 16 games.
What do you have for him ranked at?
I have him ranked at number 17 currently. So he is, shadowing 20, you know what I mean? He's a top 20 player for me for sure.
Yeah,
but
I'm at 14. So he's a little bit up there a little bit more. But
I want to update this, no doubt. But, I also, too, just quickly, it's between him and Josh Allen. I'm high on both of those guys.
Josh Allen, too.
So Josh Allen, I think, has a lot of potential to sneak into the top 10, and he's someone that is being super slept on, completely undrafted, it seems like, in drafts. But going back to my focus, that's Kyler Murray. They drafted him number 1 overall for a reason. He's going to be the undoubted week 1 starter, and I think Cliff Kingsbury offense, it fits perfectly to what Kyler Murray is going to do. I mean, whether it's run or the run, the pass, the option, I mean, whatever it may be, having a top 5 running back with David Johnson, and then I loved what they did by early signing a couple receivers. Drafting a couple receivers in Andy Isabella and Hakeem Butler. So I think Hakeem Butler is the perfect guy to learn behind Larry Fitzgerald and take over that role. And we might even see Hakeem Butler really have a decent rookie year, in my opinion. Andy Isabella with that speed that they really, really need. I'm super intrigued with this offense, not to mention they went out and definitely boosted up that offensive line, which really is going to help because Lord knows Josh Rosen didn't have any help there last year. So if they can improve that a little bit, his legs and his feet, I mean, we're looking at some of the best legs since Michael Vick, in my opinion. So we already talked about the bonus round where you have rushing and passing touchdowns to be able to flourish from. There's nothing better than that, and that's why I have Kyler Murray as a top 10 potential quarterback this year.
Wow, I love it, man. Like I said, I'm at 14. I actually had him at 12 and moved him down a couple of spots because I want to see a little bit more out of him.
I definitely, by preseason, I'm going to have him a little higher. Maybe even in my top 10. You never know.
You never know. But that's it. That's it for today, man.
Love it.
We will be. I can't wait to cover the running backs, the receivers.
That's the
Those
real
are always fun,
giddy.
Those are tough, though. It's really diving deep, but it was great. Always.
And we're always going to give you in my opinion, the best fantasy advice out there when it comes to our opinions and what we think and our stats. So thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you soon for the rest of our rankings.
The League crew, we appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at The League Podcast and on Twitter at The League Pod. All of our podcasts will be posted on SoundCloud at The League Podcast as well.